Hey, it's Carlton French. Welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. I am here this week with my good friend Dana Brennan. You have previously been married and you had 2 children.
That's right.
And what was kind of your childhood like? At what point did you come to know who Jesus was and what he had done for you?
I was adopted. They couldn't have kids, so I was adopted at 2 months old, and I played all the sports and did all the things, and it just never was enough. By the time I left high school, I had been arrested 5 times, extremely bad. So I ended up overdosing on heroin, meth, and cocaine over the course of those years, and in and out of jail. I think I really started to see what God was doing in other people's lives because it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then I'd have another drink, and then have another drink, and then I would go buy an 8-ball of cocaine. You know, I mean, it was just you got to think through that. And then I would, speaking today, and then I would lose my kids. I'd lose my family. To be 99% known is to be fully not known, because you're not fully known if you're only putting 90 or 95 or 98% of yourself out there. You have to want it 10 times more than they want it for you. And they're going to want it for you really bad. Don't date in the dark. I mean, I couldn't say this enough, but the reality is you can have, 20 green flags with someone that you're dating. And if there's one red flag, you've got to pump the brakes and say, why is this red? And let's talk about this together. Let's work through it. There could be a misperception. There could be miscommunication. Man, this is rock bottom. I can't get any lower than this moment, laying on this floor in this hotel room with all of these people doing the things that they were doing, that some of the worst things you can imagine in life was happening in that room. And that's how I woke up from that overdose. And I booked it out of there, because this is as close to death as it gets.
This is something I haven't even shared on the podcast, but when I went through and so it felt like, oh man, just got ripped part of me out.
Challenge yourself constantly.
You have to be a little bit patient.
The whole idea is you have to become content in singleness.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't fired off some Instagram DMs.
The word dating is not mentioned in the Bible.
I dedicated my life at Tomorrow World to Jesus.
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton French, a 29-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey, it's Carlton French. Welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. I am here this week with my good friend, Dana Brennan. Dana, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Dana. I am super excited to have you on today. I think that this episode is going to be really special. And specifically, I'm excited to have you on, just knowing you the last few years through our church here in Atlanta, Georgia, Passion City Church, and how you're really plugged in with our young adult ministry at the church. And I've been serving the last couple of years at the young adult ministry, and just have looked up to you the last few years, how you've come and encouraged our leaders through the ministry, and just shared some of your story there, and you being 45 and having 2 children, and how you've come to faith later in life, but then have kind of really gotten plugged in deep in ministry, and now you're working in global missions. I think it's going to really encourage our listeners today. So
Love it.
Really awesome to have you on.
Thank you for the intro. Yeah, it's been an honor to serve alongside you, and excited for today for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dana. And also want to highlight you are, like I said, 45. And
thanks for reminding everybody of that. Thank you. Thought we could get by without that, but okay.
Last time I'll say that. Okay. And you have previously been married, and you had 2 children.
That's right.
And your children are amazing. You're telling me they're in the same school now, and they're doing so well.
Yeah.
So
9 and 5.
9 and 5, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And
sweet ages.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on specifically to talk a little bit about that, because I have only had one father on to this point of the podcast.
Yeah.
Jay, yes. And he had, I don't know, a different perspective, I think it's cool to hear from men who are in the same stage of life as you. Sure. And so most of the guys that have come on have been around, 25 to 30.
Yeah.
And then to have you come on and be a stage ahead, I think it's going to really resonate well.
It's awesome.
Yeah, excited to have you here. And I know hobby-wise, you were telling me you love everything fitness and adventure races and Tough Mudders.
That's right.
I'm not much of a adventure race person myself. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're missing out, man.
Yeah. I just started.
We'll go do one together.
Okay. Maybe you can help me.
Okay.
Yeah. I just started running recently, actually.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to start.
I was like, I should probably be able to run a mile,
You
like
should.
straight as a healthy 29-year-old man.
You should. Yep.
So I started to do some running,
Okay.
a couple times a week,
Okay.
getting my cardiovascular health in better
Good,
shape.
good.
So yeah,
Maybe lifting some weights next.
lifting some weights next, hopefully. I fractured my thumb over the summer wakeboarding,
No.
and I just
okay.
got the.
That's exercise, by the way.
Yeah, that was exercise for sure. Yeah, so I just got the splint off, and so
Yep.
hopefully I'll get back to
Right.
actually being in the gym here soon.
You a good wakeboarder?
No, I was terrible. That was my first time ever doing it, and
Okay.
I fractured my thumb doing it. So
oh no.
so
But you got up though?
I got up. Yeah,
Okay, good for you.
yeah, I got up. So that was
Not
good.
everyone does.
Got up, but then went right down. So awesome, Dana. So super grateful to have you on. Anything I left out you want to share with the audience before we
No,
jump
I
in?
think you covered everything.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
One thing I have everybody kind of start with is just this last week, what's been going on in your life, a high, a low, so people can get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, it's been actually a challenging week. My mom is in the hospital. She had surgery on her back. This is one of many, many surgeries that she has had, and several on her back. So they went in to remove some infection in the bones of her back. So hopefully that'll take away a lot of the pain she's been having. But I've been back and forth from home and a hospital, and we'll probably go to the hospital after this. And but thank you for asking. But she's recovering on the up and up. Going to start physical therapy soon, and inpatient physical therapy. So she'll get some really good help at the hospital. And so hopefully we'll have her back walking in no time, because before this she was on a walker and leaned over and just having a tough go at it. So this is I'm excited to see this hopefully next chapter, and like got all the bone stuff cleared up in her back, and now I want to see her stand up and walk in Jesus' name.
Yeah, in Jesus' name. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's the high or the low, or maybe part of both?
No, maybe a little bit of part of both, I guess. Yeah, but work's been fantastic. Work is, it's going really good. It was just at offsite with our team last week, and dreaming and planning, and you love coming back from those things and then starting to implement what you talked about, and what you put up on the whiteboard, and to start to see those things come to life is really good. So this is the week after the offsite where things start coming alive, and those are like my favorite weeks.
Yeah, amazing, so great. Well, thanks for being here today with everything
You bet.
going on.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to have you talk a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah.
I know you grew up in Douglasville in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
You still live in Atlanta now. And what was kind of your childhood like? At what point did you come to know who Jesus was and what he had done for you?
Yeah, right. So I've got two amazing parents, still married to today, and an Irish Catholic father from Brooklyn, New York, and a Southern Belle mom from kind of the North Georgia area.
Okay.
And so they're like polar opposites, but they're amazing, and they're just so generous and loving. And I was adopted. They couldn't have kids, so I was adopted at 2 months old on Valentine's Day. So I was born in December, adopted on Valentine's Day. So I was a gift to my parents for sure.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job of always letting me know that, that I was chosen and that I had been adopted. And so they did just a phenomenal job as parents raising me. But I did start to take some tough turns. I think being an only child, extroverted, wanting so badly to like have acceptance and be in the popular crowd, and I played all the sports and like did all the things, and it just like never was enough. Like it was probably a lot of that adventure thing I had inside of me, always wanting to like, go out and explore and do like, fun and crazy things, and that started to like multiply. So in my, neighborhood that I grew up in like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, there were like different pockets of kids that were doing, a variety of different things. And there was the kids over here that were watching things way earlier than they should be watching things. And I was running with them, and, people over here that were, getting in fights, and I was running with them, people over here that were stealing, and I'd start, all the things, and you got the athletes. And so I was trying to manage all my time. And I found myself pretty quickly chasing after all the wrong things in life and running down lanes that I didn't need to run down. And I wasn't running from anything. I was actually just running towards like more acceptance and more popularity and more things of the world that I felt like is what, served me the best. So it's just a very selfish way to approach life in that season. And then I took that mindset into high school. And pretty quickly, I started, just quitting things. I quit the basketball team, and I quit baseball, and soccer was really suffering. And all the things that were staples in my life, and making good grades and playing sports, were all starting to kind of fade away. And the partying lifestyle was becoming the priority. Okay. And by the time I left high school, I had been arrested 5 times. I had got my second DUI. Shoplifting, vandalism. It was just trending downhill really badly. So I got sent to military college up in Dahlonega, and I was kind of kicking and screaming the whole way, but it actually was a good thing for me. It gave me a lot of discipline, which I still draw on today. I didn't stick with it. In all fairness, I was there for about 2 years in the military program, but the addiction just started to take over. I went from like being kind of the center of attention, life of the party, to full-blown addiction and just hanging out by myself and just using and selling drugs. Ended up quitting school and just staying up in that area. And I was just doing some of the worst things you can imagine. My parents, meanwhile, are having a tough time. My mom got cancer. My dad got activated into the military. So I came back home. And I thought by coming back home, that would be like the reset. Like I'd just be able to walk away from everything that, had been happened, and leave the environment, leave all the all the charges and everything behind me, and everything would just reset. But it didn't. In fact, I ran into all the same guys that were doing all the same stuff from high school, and we just like kind of picked up where we left off. And that's when I got into meth and heroin, and things got like extremely bad. So I ended up overdosing on heroin, meth, and cocaine over the course of those years. And in and out of jail, I was either in jail or on probation for most of my late teenage, and all of my 20s, all of those years. And it was a train wreck. I mean, it was really bad. I ruined all the relationships I came into contact with, just fractured all the relationships with my family for sure. Wow. And then one day I walk into a food pantry, and I was homeless. I mean, going from couch to couch, staying at different places and just kind of partying my way through life, and wherever I'd pass out would be where I'd stay. And I had a lot of stuff in my car, and sometimes didn't have a car. And but I ended up going to this food pantry for 2 reasons that day. One was because I needed food, and I figured if I could have the food, I could either eat it or trade it to be able to stay somewhere else. And 2, I had seen this place a lot, and I saw all the people that were kind of coming in and out of it. And I remember actually looking down on them and thinking that that's who everyone that's trying to help me, that's who you need to go help. I've got this under control. At some point I can turn the switch and everything will be okay. I still thought that I could control it. And I remember walking in that day and seeing all of those people and thinking some of those things, but my perspective quickly changed. I walked in and I saw people that had joy in their hearts. They didn't have anything in their pocket. I mean, they had nothing in their pocket. They didn't have anything to their name. Many of them had lost relationships with their children, with their family. They were going to stay underneath a bridge. They were going to spend the night in their car. And, but they had like this joy and this hope, and they loved Jesus, the same Jesus that my parents had talked about. And that was just fascinating to me, because so much of my life up until that point was about what you could get, and how you could work the situation, and how you could manipulate people to like get the next hit. Yeah. And it was about what you had. And these people had nothing, but they had everything. And then I realized that this was a Christian food pantry, that you couldn't just walk in and get food and leave. You had to go in and like pray with this person and pray with that person. And this person helped you with your IDs, and this person helped you get a job. And you were like there for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know I was getting roped into this whole thing. I thought I would just, be out of here by now. Yeah. But it was the best thing for me. I got to experience the love of God that day in a really powerful way. So many people that were serving at that food pantry just interacted with me, and I felt like I was on heaven's radar. And that was the first time in my life I felt like I was literally being pursued by a good God that had a plan and a purpose for my life. And I also said in that moment, I don't know what the rest of my life looks like, but I want to do something like this. I want to be where those people are that are loving and serving on all of us that are coming through the line, that are relentlessly pursuing us and praying for us. And I was just like, these people are just amazing.
Yeah.
This is just what a way to live life. And they were there like every Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday. So I just kept going too. So I kept going to this place time and time again. And they started to notice me, the executive directors, who are two of my very best friends to this day. Mentors of mine, and they invited me to like lunch, and they invited me to come early and help them like set up bags, and then they invited me to stay and serve the whole day, and there I was, like still not sober,
Okay.
still partying, and I'm like walking out with these families and helping them load up the car with these groceries, and just God was teaching me service and teaching me what it meant to be like Jesus before I even knew Jesus.
Yeah.
And there I was in these different spaces with different people, able to like speak some life into them. Just whatever I was learning in the moment, I was kind of passing along to them, whatever God had like, stirred up in my heart. And I wasn't even clear what that even looked like or what my relationship with God was like, but he was definitely stirring up things in my heart. And I was able to pass them along like the next day to someone else that came through the line, And it was just a powerful way of like, God showing me that I have a future for you, I have plans and purposes, and it will be to serve my local church in some way, shape, or form. So it was pretty amazing.
How old were you when all this was kind of going on?
29.
29, okay. Gotcha.
29 years old. And so, that set off like a whole bunch of different things for me. Started going to church. It was kind of typical. I'd like show up 15 minutes
like
late,
on a
back
Sunday.
row.
Okay.
Show up like the next Sunday, like 10 minutes late, second to back row. Show up the next Sunday, like maybe on time, maybe move a row up.
Yeah.
But I was starting to engage with God and starting to find a home at a local church and start to meet other people. But still, I'm still partying. I'm still deep in my addiction. But I'm inviting people into the story, and I'm saying, hey, I've got these issues and I need help. And there were just, a plethora of people that wanted to help and walk through life with me. And I am still friends today with some of those men and women that stepped into my life and said, let's do this together. And Christmas time came now that year. All that kind of started during the summer, Christmas time that year. And I just partied all the way through Christmas, just went on a really bad run. And I was off the radar to my parents for a couple weeks. And I came home 2 days after Christmas, and that wasn't unique for me to be gone, but it was just understanding where I was on Christmas. I actually overdosed on Christmas, and I was in this terrible kind of seedy hotel in kind of West Atlanta that was like half open, half closed. And I remember waking up from the overdose on this floor, like laying down face first, and I remember kind of waking up and just sweating, and like it was like these fuzzy things were stuck to my cheek from like this old like shag carpet hotel room. And I remember thinking to myself as I'm like pushing myself up, man, this is rock bottom. Like I can't get any lower than this moment, laying on this floor in this hotel room with all of these people doing the things that they were doing, that some of the worst things you can imagine in life was happening in that room. And that's how I woke up from that overdose. And I booked it out of there, and I knew that had to be my exit.
Wow.
That this has to be the last time that I am in a space like this, because this is like as close to death as it gets. And it took me 2 days to get home, and I slept for 2 days, and met with a pastor 2 days after that, and ended up putting my faith in Jesus. And
Wow.
I wanted to go to rehab, interestingly enough, and he said he had a whole nother plan for me. And it was like Monday morning, come in, clean the church, men's accountability group at noon. He had a job for me to do. Monday night, men's Bible study.
Wow.
Tuesday morning, men's accountability group. Tuesday night, men's Bible study. Another job. He just filled my schedule, and just this guy just discipled me, mentored me, and did an incredible job at helping me get connected to community and start to rebuild my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. How old were you when that was happening?
I was 30. I was that next
30.
year.
Okay.
Yeah, 30.
Next year.
And then, I went to Bible college and got my degree in theology, and finished up some of what I had started, many years before that.
Yeah.
Just took a different turn.
Yeah.
Started out like kind of in the marketing space and ended up in theology, and
Yeah.
so
Wow.
it was amazing.
So now 15 years you've been following Jesus.
Yeah.
Was it really like 30? Okay, this is the rock bottom. I'm going to go talk to this pastor. And okay, I really believed at that point? Or what was it just about hitting that rock bottom that made you go to that church?
Yeah, I think I started to believe through some of that time at that food pantry. I think I really started to see what God was doing in other people's lives because it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, again, these are people that had nothing in their pocket but everything in their heart. And they had joy, and here I am depressed, you know?
Yeah.
They had like hope for tomorrow, and I have anxiety about tomorrow. And they talked about Jesus in a way that they had confidence about what the plans and purposes were for their life. And as I see them walk off, they're going to go sleep underneath a bridge, you know? And it was just, or they're going to a shelter, or they're going to sleep in their car, or they've got low income housing or whatever. They were just in interesting spaces in life. And some of them had just found themselves in those spaces, you know, through some circumstances that may not even been fault of their own.
Yeah.
But I was so inspired by what God was doing in their lives that it opened my eyes up to what God could do in my life. And I knew that I was not in good shape. And I knew that I needed to be near other people that were following Jesus, not just like talking about Jesus, but like truly following the Lord, like being in the Word, in prayer, in community, in accountability, sharpening one another. I knew that I needed that because if I didn't have that, I would quickly go back to an old lifestyle because there would be people that would hit me up on my phone or on social media or something, and it very quickly I could go the other direction.
Wow. Okay.
So what happened during that time at the end of the year and Christmas at that hotel and that overdose, it was the last wake up call, you know, because leading up to then there was a lot of time where I'd go a couple days without using and then would like be back hard in it. But that was the wake up call that I needed to be able to say that, Jesus, I'm going to go all in here.
Yeah.
And I want to put my faith in Jesus, and I want to put my trust in you. I want to lay down and surrender my life and have you tell me what to do with my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm done trying to control my life. I'm done trying to make decisions about what I do with my life. I need you to guide and direct my steps because I cannot do it.
Yeah.
It was the ultimate place of humility.
Yeah. Wow. So then was it, okay, like total miracle you had no addictions anymore and like no temptation to do that anymore? Or what was that process like? Okay, now I'm surrendering, but do you still have the temptations? How'd you kind of work through that part?
Yeah, great. Yes to temptations, but there was a level of healing that happened to where I knew that I couldn't go back. I knew that God had opened my eyes up to another way in life and following the Lord and following his ways and serving other people. And I knew that that was a part of my story. I knew that I had a future. He was opening my eyes towards this future that ultimately is always what I wanted, and that was to be around other people. It was to serve other people. I mean, that was kind of how I grew up. I was very extroverted, loved connecting with people. I was the only child. I was constantly seeking relationships. I loved like teaching and coaching and sports, and all of these things were all played into like my personality. And so you remove all the addictions and it's like, oh, wow, this is a lot of who you made me to be, God. Someone that likes to develop other people, likes to speak into people's lives, likes to be a leader, likes to serve, in different spaces with different people. And I love people. Like I really love people.
Yeah.
Like I'm that guy that'll talk to you on the elevator. I'm that guy that doesn't like to cross paths with someone and not at least smile or say hello.
Your personality is like infectious. I love it.
So it's something I've always had, but then you mask all that with the drugs and all the addictions and all the mess that comes with that life. And when you remove all that, it was just God saying, hey, I've got a way for you. I need you to follow me, and everything that you've learned, all the gifts that I've given you, I'm going to put those into practice.
Yeah.
And so that's when he started to open my eyes towards maybe serving in the local church. Actually, even potentially working for the church may be a possibility. But I ended up getting a job in staffing.
Okay.
I was on the recruiting side of the business for a number of years and then ended up on the sales side of the business. And again, it was the people business. I got to talk to people every single day. I got to ask them about their life, whether they were, candidates for a job or whether I was later on in my career where I was actually working with, clients and talking to them about their staffing strategy, but also, asking them about their life. And it's just like God just kept using all of these moments to help shape me into who I am today. So it was really cool.
Wow. Amazing.
So, but the temptations, I would say waned over the years, thankfully. But that takes hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes work because the things you have to do as someone that has been in recovery would know this. Yeah. You have to think through those steps. Like you have to think through, like, if I was to take a drink, then this is what would happen. Initially, I'd probably take another drink, and then I'd have another drink, and then have another drink, and then I would go buy an 8-ball of cocaine. You know, I mean, it's just like you got to think through that. And then I would, think speaking today, and then I would lose my kids, I'd lose my family. So you have to think through the action. So whether that's a sexual addiction, whether that's a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever that is, you have to like very quickly grab a hold of those thoughts, take those thoughts captive, and start to think through. If I do make this decision, here's how I'm going to feel in a little bit. Here's how I'm going to wake up and feel tomorrow. Here's the destruction that I'm going to do to that person or the people around me. You have to think through, as we would say, think through the drink or think through the action. Yeah. And so that's how you start to, over time, you start to like train your brain to rewire it to think differently about those substances. Wow. Or those decisions in general.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. That's almost like, okay, the instant gratification of maybe the one drink now, but then you're not thinking tomorrow, here's what's going to happen,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I think like everyone's always focused on controlling the one behavior. Yeah. But then you don't see what it can lead to down the road.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. That's great. Let's say that you could specifically speak to maybe someone's listening now that is struggling with drugs or alcohol or, whatever's going on in their life, and, or even yourself, back when you were in your late 20s, kind of in that, what advice would you specifically give to yourself or to that person that's going through it right now?
Invite people into the journey. Yeah. With you. You have to surround yourself with people that know what you're dealing with, that have a good grasp and true grasp of how you're struggling on the inside. I say this a lot. To be 98% known is to be fully not known. To be 99% known is to be fully not known, because you're not fully known if you're only putting 90 or 95 or 98% of yourself out there. So there has to be people in your life that you're like, hey, me and you, I'm going to tell you everything. Yeah. You got an hour, you got 2 hours, you got a day, let's go somewhere. I've got to tell you everything. So you got to start with one person and then expand that circle as needed, because that person may need to bring someone else in. You start with making a circle around you, and I'm going to tell these people everything that I'm dealing with. And these people, as you select well, are going to love me for who I am, but they're not going to let me stay where I'm at. And you have to have, honestly, the guts to be able to do that, to take that step. You have to want it for yourself. It doesn't matter who you surround with you. You have to want it 10 times more than they want it for you. Yeah. And they're going to want it for you really bad. I mean, I've been there. I've walked with other people that have been in, trying to get sober, and I've wanted it for them so bad. I can think of, 10 of their names right now. So bad, people that I've met through church and people that are, doing great right now. Yeah. But they had to finally step up to bat and say, all right, I'm going to exit the scene. I'm going to, like the prodigal son had to finally get up out of the mud and make his exit. All right, I'm going to leave. This is worse than I could possibly ever hope, dream, or imagine. I got to make the exit. Some people never make the exit, sadly. Yeah. I've got so many friends. It feels like every month or two on Facebook, there's another thing that comes by, and another funeral that's happening. People that just never exited, right? Right. So to talk to that younger version of myself, man, it is to invite people into the process with you. And tell your family if that's safe for you. Tell a counselor if that's safe for you. Look for professional help. There are people there that will want to help, but you got to put in the work. You got to want it. Yeah. You got to be willing to take steps that may seem hard, but the payoff to have a life of sobriety, and to have a life where you wake up each day and you're not just miserable about what happened the night before, or maybe even go to sleep, or you went to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, to have those days in your past, and then to see those days 5 years in the past, 10 years in the past. Now for me, 15 years in the past is one of the best feelings you could ever imagine. Yeah. Wow. So amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Dana, being vulnerable with your story. I know it's going to encourage everyone listening. So now, being where you're at now, Dana, and 30, you come to know Jesus. I'd love for you to talk about how you have layered dating into your story. Like, what was that like before coming to know Jesus, and then what's it been like since coming to know Jesus? Yeah. Before coming to know Jesus, it was selfish. It was about what I could get and how I could satisfy myself. And there were a lot of people hurt in the process. And that's on a larger scale, but I think anybody listening today, that can happen on a small scale. When selfishness and pride and when relationships come about what I can get and how I can be served, even in small scale, that's where the pain comes. That's where people get hurt. That's how breakups happen. That's how people that do break up never speak again, because it isn't about actually being better for the other person. It's about potentially being better for yourself. And so then post-dating or post-Jesus, it's been a lot more of understanding that you have to prepare really well for marriage. That it's not preparing for dating. Like there's a lot of books and content out there, and I think some of it's fantastic. It's a lot about preparing for dating. Please listen to that, immerse yourself in that.
Yeah.
But you also have to flip that switch at some point and say, I'm going to prepare for marriage. I'm preparing to be a husband before I can be a boyfriend.
Yeah.
I'm preparing to understand what it means to wake up each morning and get into the Word of God. I'm understanding what it means to be able to make a space in my heart, in my home one day for a bride. I'm understanding what it means to lay down my pride and my greed so that I can have humility in my life, so that I can have space to be able to serve, to be able to truly sacrifice my life for a family, to be able to lay down my will and hope and pray that that's reciprocated and there's a beautiful relationship that comes. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference between a kind of a pre-cross and like a post-cross dating. Is I almost don't even love the word dating. I think it should be pursuing someone else's heart, right? I think in relationships, it's about pursuing their heart and understanding that what you're bringing to the table is your absolute best. And if you can't bring your absolute best to the table, that should be a red flag for you to take steps back, either from that relationship or from dating in general, or pull the whatever down from the whatever app. And you've got to like circle around yourself and start to understand how you are preparing yourself to truly be the best version of yourself in front of somebody else.
Yeah.
And so some of the ways that I think about doing that is the first way for preparing yourself to be a husband is to surrender dating, is to surrender the idea of going out and having self-serving interactions. And I think I had to come to a place in my life where I was okay. Now, this is just speaking as a single dad.
Yeah.
I had to, and I think it can translate, or has translated in other conversations. So we'll see how it does. But I had to come to a place where I was okay saying, I'm laying down dating for a season or for seasons, potentially, God, I hope it isn't forever, but I'm going to lay it down so that I can be fully attuned to you in this season, so that I can be self-aware of who I am, of the mistakes I've made, so that I can be healthy spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. I want all of that. I desire all that. God, I think you've led me to make sure that all of that is prepared before I even enter a dating relationship. Now, do I think you can be in a dating relationship and learn more about yourself and grow in some of these areas? Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a benefit of dating, is to start to learn more about how you're wired, and you can learn a lot by yourself when you're solo, but sometimes it takes being in a dating relationship and doing life with somebody else to realize, okay, I've got a maybe a humility issue here, or I have a forgiveness issue here, or there's something that's stirring up in my heart. Why is that there? Is that something from the past? I might need to address that, right?
Right.
So I do think you can learn a lot from dating, but I think you've got to, number one, in preparing, you've got to surrender yourself to dating and be in a place where loneliness is not your answer. You're not dating to fix loneliness, right?
Yeah.
That, or better said, I think that you're not dating because you're lonely. That just, dating is not the answer for loneliness at all. And so many people that I know step into dating relationships because ultimately they're just lonely and they want to spend quality time with someone of the opposite sex. And I get that. I totally get that. We all get that.
Yeah.
But are you bringing your best to the situation if that's what you're doing? Because ultimately, are you still not lonely? Because you're probably still lonely because, the reality is you're probably trading that relationship for another relationship you could be having with another guy and doing some discipleship, with someone else, or a mentor, or community in general, right? And so another part, I think, is you have to start renewing your mind. I think you have to go on the self-awareness campaign especially for people that have come out of divorce or have come out of another relationship that's been hard, or even a short relationship. I think you have to like take some time. And this is what I had to do. I had to take some time. I got my Evernote out and I just started journaling day after day after day and just got my thoughts out and started to like organize those thoughts into things that I was learning, things that God was showing me about who I am today, things that God's showing me about who I am tomorrow. But you got to get those thoughts down.
Yeah.
If you're not meeting with a counselor, which I would highly recommend, you've got to be able to like really meet with God and have him show you these areas that you can start to renew your mind and go on these, what I would say, like a self-awareness campaign, helping to understand who you are. Go take a personality test. I know we've got to, we make jokes about all the personality tests that are out there, but take one. I've noticed mine have changed over time. And so take another one and kind of check in and see where you're at, see what motivates you, and see where your fears are and where your dreams are and where your strengths and weaknesses have come up. Because when you step out of a relationship and go to step into another one quickly without fully understanding what happened to how your heart was hurt or how you hurt somebody else's heart, and you step into another relationship, you're bringing unresolved conflict from inside your mind and heart and bringing that into the next relationship. And then that person's going to have to help you unpack that. And that's not fair for them to do that.
Yeah, that's so good. That's one thing that you just even talking about doing divorce and like speaking to divorced people that might be listening. This is something I haven't even shared on the podcast, but when I went through my breakup with my ex about 3 years ago, that was like my first relationship, and it felt like a divorce in a way. So I was like dating in the way I'd been raised in church. I was like, oh, okay, now I'm like trying to figure this out. This must lead to marriage, because like dating leads to marriage. And so it felt like, oh man, like just like got ripped like part of me out. And so I've been going to like counseling and therapy for like the last 3 years, and specifically did a class about people that were divorced as a single person who wasn't married.
Smart.
But it was like, wow, I got to sit with people that were actually walking through divorce, who had been married for 20, 30 plus years. And like, wow, this is not what I want to happen in my life, Lord willing, one day. And so like, it really taught me a lot and helped me see like, here's real people. And so I think you coming on and sharing some of your story about that will help other single men who maybe wouldn't take that step to actually go to a counseling or a therapy session or something like that. Or there's like a stigma around, oh, I'm weak if I do that. So
it's worth it.
Yeah. We'd love to have you talk a little bit about what, the process of divorce has taught you specifically about the importance of dating and relationships.
Yeah. Humility, and more humility.
Yeah.
It's, there's a reality that divorce is not natural. It's painful. No one ever wants it. No one ever thinks that they're going to be a part of it. I mean, no one's thinking about that on their wedding day.
Yeah.
I know I wasn't. And many times, or I can only speak for myself, it's not something I saw coming. It's not something I wanted. And even as it was happening, I was doing everything I could to save and fight for that marriage. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And that was so hard. So hard. Yeah. So the encouragement to people who haven't been married and or still are married is you never, ever, ever want to go through something like that. It is one of the most painful, if not the most painful thing on earth. And I know there's losing parents, and I know there's all of those things, but it is truly a death to grieve. And especially if children are involved. And so what it's taught me is to stop, to rest, to seek God, to not fill the vacuum with other things, even healthy things, more fitness or more adventure races or more of the things that we were talking about. Yeah. Don't fill that gap. There's going to be a gap there. It's going to be a big gap. It's a broken heart. It's a space in your home that won't be filled anytime soon. But you can't go fill it with the next thing that comes along. And I've sat across the table from so many guys that have pretty quickly started to make that shift and have felt empty and have felt lonely, and rightfully so. It is a lonely place to be. There's people around me that didn't know how to interact with me after that People that were in my corner through the whole thing, still even afterwards, even to this day, in some ways are like, it's just hard to interact with someone that has been divorced, that sometimes we as the church don't quite know how to engage with that person. And that's not across the board, but that's a reality. It's just a lonely place to be.
Yeah.
And there's not like all of these support groups. And I don't know if that's helpful either, but
yeah.
I will tell you that getting into counseling was so key, and starting to work backwards and understand how I got into the relationship, what I was thinking and desiring and expecting when I got into the relationship, what the other person was thinking, desiring, and expecting when they were getting to the relationship, how we were missing each other, how we were aligned, and start to kind of like just learn by going backwards. One of the things that I would pass on is something I still use to this day, and it's this idea of like green light, yellow light, red light.
Yeah.
And it's so helpful as you're thinking about dating someone else. The reality is, especially in the beginning, there's gonna be lots of green lights, you know? It's just like everything's green, green flag, green flag, green flag.
Right.
And every once in a while, especially in the beginning, it might be a yellow briefly, and then you like somehow are trying to talk yourself into that being a green. And goodness forbid it's a red. You're going to try to talk yourself into somehow that being a yellow or a green.
Yeah.
But I would say you've got to stop and be honest with yourself and invite people into the process. Don't date in the dark. I mean, I couldn't say this enough.
Yeah.
People constantly date in the dark. They take their dating relationship offline, away from other people outside of their community, and they don't invite people into the process, healthy people into the process to be able to walk with them.
Yeah.
But the reality is you can have, 20 green flags with someone that you're dating. And if there's one red flag, you've got to pump the brakes and say, why is this red? And let's talk about this together. Let's work through it. There could be a misperception. There could be miscommunication, maybe a lack of understanding. I would always use the phrase, seek to understand. Seek to understand why this is red, because it may not be red for her. It may be yellow for her or green for her. And so you've just got to determine, you got to seek to understand their perspective, your perspective. And if there's something that continues to come up that's red or yellow, I would say it doesn't matter how many things are green. You have got to stop, and you've got to assess, is that something that I truly want to live with for the rest of my life? Because again, you're not preparing for dating, you're preparing for marriage.
Yeah.
It's not preparing to date. You're preparing to get married. If you are a Christian man that is pursuing Jesus and is pursuing the heart of another woman, then you are preparing for marriage. And you're preparing her heart and yourself to be able to hold her heart for the rest of your life. And that is a beautiful thing. So you need to make sure that there aren't these little cracks or these crevices there where the enemy can come in and can attack you. And that's where those yellow and red flags are that you've got to stop and say, what is this? And that's just something that I've learned over time and continue to apply to this day.
Yeah. Wow. So good. I get a lot of questions and guys that have come on and feedback from women that listen around the idea of, okay, when to know if you should commit to actually get married. Maybe you could speak a little bit about that from your experience. Like, what was it about your first marriage where you're like, okay, I'm going to commit to this? And then maybe something that you'd encourage men that are trying to figure it out now, if they should commit to dating this girl, being exclusive, getting married, ultimately getting engaged. How did you kind of think through that? And maybe advice you'd have for guys that are trying to think through it now?
Yeah. One of the most underused, I think, tools out there in the dating, preparing for marriage world is pre-engagement counseling.
Yeah.
We talk about premarital counseling. We talk a lot about engaged, getting married counseling or classes. Our church does Unite, and there's a lot of different options, but I'd back it up.
Pre-engagement counseling.
Pre-engagement counseling. It's a thing.
Okay.
It's a real thing. You go to a counselor and you ask them about pre-engagement counseling. They're like, I'm impressed. Where do you want to start? Let's go.
Okay.
And I've seen it work. I've sent people to counselors, and they've all come back raving because before they got engaged, they did some deep, meaningful work, some digging up. And ultimately what they're getting at, many of them, are the blind spots. What spots do we have in our relationship that are maybe they're high friction spots already, and that's clear. Let's work through those. But what are the blind spots that we're still living in this bliss of this relationship? And maybe they're the covered up yellow flags that are green, but end up becoming yellow a little bit more down the road when things get real and you get a little bit more comfortable and you get a little bit more confident to like, speak into things and speak up and say, hey, that hurt my feelings, or like, hey, what's happening here? And tell me more about how you think this. But that pre-engagement counseling is such a great tool to be able to walk people through like a 4 or 6 or 8 week process to do a deep dive. And I think that is one of the best underused tools that are out there in preparing for marriage.
Wow. That's great. I didn't even know what that was. So that's helpful for me to know. Okay, cool. And then
I could have just made it up and I just went to the counselors and they're like, oh, pre-engagement. That sounds right. Let's do it. But no, it's real.
Okay. I love it. So I'd love to have you touch on, Dana, being a single dad. What has that taught you about the importance of dating and having children that you're raising now? The importance of getting that relationship right.
You nailed it. You want to get it right. Okay. There's no getting this one wrong, So it really heightens the level of looking at yourself and making sure that you are fully ready to be a husband, to potentially be a dad again to other kids, that you have prepared yourself in a way that is truly vulnerable, that someone or someones in this world know 100% about the things about you. And if that's not happening, you have to stop. And there's a good chance that you may not get it right? So that's number one, is you have this heightened level of understanding that this is something that I'm going to pursue in a godly way. And I'm going to give it my absolute best shot because there is no other second chance, right? The statistics are just too high on second marriages not making it, that I know personally, I do not want to be a part of those statistics. The statistics are just too high for people that are having failed marriages in their second marriage, that I know that I am not going to be one of those people that has that is a part of that statistic. So it's like it ups the effort level, it ups the self-awareness level, it ups the seeking to understand the other person. You definitely don't leave a stone uncovered. There's a lot of things out there that says, on dates, don't go deep, too early. And I'm like, I don't know, bump all that. Like, go deep.
Okay.
Like, make sure that you're not, allowing yourself to be physically attracted before your heart's really attracted, before your mind's attracted, before you have truly looked at your own life and their life and how could this all blend together. I'd say talk about the heavy things early and often, and get to a place where you can find out how vulnerable the other person is. You can find out how much they have a godly perspective, a biblical worldview. Pray together. It's amazing to watch someone else pray that you're dating, because you get to see how they talk to God. And you have to be careful with some of the intimacy around those moments, of course. I do think that's kind of like an asterisk to that. But I think it's helpful to be in some of those spaces where you're journeying through Scripture together and helping to make sure that you guys are going to have a foundation that will last the test of time. Yeah. I also think about, in like a second marriage, or really any marriage, you want to be stepping into a relationship where you are ready to run with someone that's already running and you guys are on mission for God. Like, what is their mission statement for their life? Not that they need to have it written out or tattooed on their arm or on their journal or whatever, but are they on mission for God? Do they have some sort of like statement, some sort of awareness and understanding of how God is leading them? And they don't have to have the whole plan laid out, of what everything looks like. And of course, if we even knew that plan, we would somehow mess it all up, because we knew the plan. But I think there's a reality of a real awareness of, is that person on mission for God, pursuing God at the same pace that I am? And if that's there, that's just another really important green flag that allows you to kind of move forward. Yeah. As a single dad dating in the world that we're in today, I have to think about things as building a family, not just building a relationship. I've heard it said this way: it's not just coupleness, it's familyness. It's not just togetherness, it's building a team. It's this blending that happens, especially if there's kids in the mix, and it's truly like a blended family. And there's a lot of content out there. I would highly recommend anyone that's on coming close to like stepping into a blended family type relationship, to look up anything Ron Deal. Ron Deal is like the man out there from the Christian and non-Christian space.
Okay.
Just a phenomenal author and written books like Preparing to Blend and Smart Step Family, just a lot of great resources. But in all of those resources, what it'll talk about is how the slower that you move, the better. Because dating and remarriage and marriage, all of those things, it's a marathon. It's never a sprint. If you treat it like a sprint, you're going to miss so many cues along the way that's going to help you be a better person and help you serve the person even better. And I think as a single dad, I have to engage in what I call like what if conversations. And again, I think I'm confident this can apply with your community if you're dating, just like if you would be dating. You want to engage like the people around you in like what if conversations. Hey, what if I was to pursue this person? Here's their profile on social media. Take a look. Will you guys be praying for me? I'm thinking about reaching out.
Wow.
I think that's really important. That's something I do and have done in all of my dating life since being married.
Really?
Yep. I will take that profile. I will send it to a group of people that I really trust. And I will say, do you know anybody that knows this person? Will you be praying over this?
Wow.
And that's the ultimate goal. I want this, pursuit to be covered in prayer. And so what do you think if I ask this person out?
Yeah.
Same thing with my kids. Hey, what do you think at a certain point in the relationship? It's what do you think if daddy was to have a girlfriend? What do you think if daddy was to, have you meet that girlfriend and start to get their buy-in? Because you want their yes. You don't want to like skip over their yes or not feel like they're a part of the process.
Wow.
Or one day you've had this like relationship for 6 months and now you're like, I've had this girlfriend.
Surprise.
Surprise.
Wow.
And so obviously there's some wisdom that you have to have of like, this has been 2 weeks, whatever. But in some ways, I think there's a lot of wisdom to, in inviting the children into the process, maybe even get to see the person or meet the person as a friend before going any further in that relationship. But it's that asking those what if questions to your community, to your small group, to the guys that will be most honest with you. Or for girls that are listening, to the girls that are being most honest with you, and people that are in healthy relationships. I mean, there's people out there you could ask for their opinion. They'd be like, yeah, go for it, or whatever. And it's like, thank you, no thank you. or you just, who to ask, right? We all know in our circles usually who's the best person to ask for, advice as you're preparing for marriage.
Right.
And so I think just stepping into those what if conversations and inviting people into the process, never dating in the dark, but putting it out there and being vulnerable with the people that are around you and allowing them to speak into the relationship. Because what I don't want to happen is to see people that start to replace that relationship, replaces their friendships, replaces their community, and then they start to fall off the map. We all have those friends. I know those people.
Yeah.
I have sat across the table countless times from other guys that, they're talking about these struggles in their relationship. And I'm like, who's walking with you guys? Well, I had more friends and I had this time, I had this best friend, but we're now disconnected. And I'm like, why are y'all disconnected? Well, I've been taking up all this time with dating and it's just, we're really pursuing each other and having a great time. And now we're not having a great time. And I'm like, so where's your best friend,
Yeah.
And they just took the relationship and they started to make a little huddle over here. And we're just going to like do life over here. And that's where we can keep our sin. We can keep our struggles. We can not have to bring accountability and vulnerability over here into the light.
Yep.
And that always breaks my heart when that happens.
Wow. So good, Dana. Wow. That's really encouraging me even. So I hope to do that. And like, I want to bring community into a future relationship.
That's right.
Lord willing, if I were to start dating again and meet somebody. So I love that.
I've learned this long in life that being attracted to the chemistry of the relationship is sometimes an unachievable myth that's out there. And maybe even go as far as like an urban legend. Of course, there's things about being attracted and we want to be physically attracted, but is the personality, is the wit and humor, is the work that they're involved in, their relationship with Jesus, how they're pursuing God through their work and through their life, their family, their community.
Wow.
And that's a different perspective than when I was 25 or when I was 28.
Yeah.
Or for goodness sakes, when I was 20. It was like, is she beautiful? And then let's start moving down the line of all the other things. And now I try to work myself backwards. And that can be hard. Let's be real. You're sitting across the table from someone and you're like, hey, can I be attracted to this person for the rest of my life? Of course that thought is there. I think I would be leading people astray if I was saying it wasn't. But you got to quickly move past that or quickly step in from the other direction. And what is it that is beautiful about the way that they pursue Jesus? And if we have lunch and, we pray together, or there's something like, pretty early on in the dating relationship, like what is magnetic about that person? Not just how do they look?
Not just physical. Yeah, that was probably one of my biggest takeaways for what you said so far is pursue who they are as a person rather than what they look like. I think that was, really something I'm going to take away from this conversation. Yeah. Wow, I love it. Awesome, Dana. Thanks so much for your wisdom on dating as well. I would love to kind of wrap things up with if you have a Bible verse for this season of life that you're in, or just for your life in general that you'd want to share and encourage the audience with.
Yeah, I love it. For me, it kind of comes in different waves, I would say, but this verses continues to be a thread through the seasons of life, but it's in view of God's mercy. Let me urge you, brothers, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. And then in this Romans 12, 1 and 2. And then in verse 2, what always seems to stand out to me is don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will know what God's will is. And so often we get that backwards. We want to know God's will without being renewing of our mind and without being transformed by his word.
Yeah.
We want the pleasures and we want to be holy, pleasures of life, and we want to be holy and pleasing to God. But we're not willing to lay down our bodies as a living sacrifice. We're not willing to serve. We're not willing to have a sacrificial mentality that I want to be others focused in my life, that I want to be about other people, that I want my life to matter because it impacts other people, not because it matters because I got the pay raise or I got the job or because I got the girlfriend or whatever. All of those things can be great if those are God-given and attained in the right motivations. But ultimately, I want my life to be a pleasing sacrifice to God for God to use for my good and his glory.
Yeah. Wow.
And then to get there, and Paul's so good at just backing that up. And that's a great thing to say, but how do we get there? We get there by not being transformed by the world, because the world is trying to bring so much into us through everything. Every notification that I'm getting is another pull into the world. And some of it's good, but a lot of it's not.
Yeah.
And so how do I continue to not let that transform me, to not let that take me into a place of being unhealthy, but continuing to come back each and every single day? And how can I be most healthy? Well, I can be most healthy by renewing my mind, by being emotionally healthy, by being physically healthy, spiritually healthy, relationally healthy, financially healthy. And that is like the true way that we show ourselves as holy and pleasing to God. And then, and only then, can we attest to what God's will is for our life.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good. I feel like a process that I maybe inadvertently went through years ago, where like, okay, I'm going to lay all this stuff down, God, and I don't know what you want me to do with it. And now it's kind of led me to do this podcast in a way, okay,
I love it.
I'm submitted to God. I feel like he gave me the vision to reach other men who were where I was at 3+ years ago, where you were at, like back when you were 29, 30, like if you had somehow heard this conversation then, maybe it would have changed things. Maybe it would have made a bigger impact on your life potentially. So yeah, hopefully it's an encouragement to single men that are listening today. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing, Dana. Last question, we'll wrap up with this. So let's say there's specifically single men now you can talk to that have been listening this whole time. What's one thing you'd want them to take away from this episode? Okay, write this down in their journal, put this on their phone as a reminder heading into the weekend.
Yeah. 1 Peter 3 talks about being a student of your wife. And if you're truly preparing for marriage, you're going to be a student of yourself first and foremost before you can ever study somebody else. You have to fully understand who you are, how you were created, the places and the areas of your life that have been dark or unseen, the sin areas that you need to bring to the light, the places where you need to be more obedient, the places where you really do shine and excel, the places that are strengths for you, and how that you could ultimately love and serve a wife. You have to understand all that. You have to be a student. And then once you're the best student possible for understanding who you are as a person, you start to think about, okay, if this is, and maybe you could even write this out, put it on a whiteboard, but these are like just some of the areas I just described, and you kind of put that all in a circle, and then you start to look at what is the circle that I'm looking for? Who do I want to be a student of? And what does that look like in terms of like, what are the non-negotiables? What is most important about not just their faith, because they should already be loving Jesus if you're a Christian man pursuing a relationship, but what is about their faith that is beautiful? What is unique about their faith? What is unique about the way that they serve in the church? What is special about their personality, how they engage, those type of things? What does their activities look like? You don't have to be fully matched up with someone.
Yeah.
In fact, I think there's beauty in having balance. And so the ultimate thing here is once you know yourself, then how can you be a student of someone else? And how can you best understand how you can make space in your life to better understand somebody else, to seek to understand everything about them? The word intimacy that comes from the Hebrew text means to fully know and to fully be known, and then to care about it. Right? So think about that. We've used intimacy in so many ways throughout society and culture.
Yeah.
But coming back to the original text in the Hebrew, it is to fully know someone else, and then to invite them in to fully know you, and then to care about each other deeply. That is intimacy.
Yeah.
That's what you need to prepare yourself in this season to be able to do and step into. And if you are in a dating relationship or about to be in a dating relationship, man, put on that like student hat. I am going to be a student of this person. I'm going to find out what her wants are, what her dreams are, what her fears are, what her needs are, and I'm going to be there to serve her in all of those areas. And if I can't, I have got to move on and not hurt her heart, and not be in a place where I'm bringing pain to something when I knew from a certain spot, or she knew, or they knew that this wasn't the right relationship because of I didn't put in the work or studying or whatever. Just
Right.
I knew that this wasn't the right relationship to move forward with.
Wow. So great, Dana. So grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing
It's an honor.
your wisdom.
Yeah. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I know this is going to be an encouragement for everyone listening. If it specifically encouraged you and you're listening, I'd love for you to leave a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube, or share it with a friend. Leave a comment below on YouTube or Spotify, what specifically stuck out to you. And we'll be reviewing them ourselves, Dana and I, and we'd love to learn what resonated with you. So thanks so much for tuning in this week. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.